to the EQ video tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter. Thanks again for watching another episode of this week's EQ video tip. Before we jump in, let's review the goals of EQ video tip. What's on tap for today? Well, we're going to talk to you from Jeff Hayden and the research from Harvard that says this 2-question protocol will help you become more likable and make a great first impression. Let's face it, people that are liked, for some reason or another, helps them drive their success. It's crazy, but the research actually proves it. The more likely you are, the more effective you are as a leader. The more likable you are, the more successful you are in sales. The more likable you are, the more likely you are to get hired or get promoted within an organization. And the more likely you are to be and maintain great relationships with people. So being likable means so many great things, and it's so important because when you're liked, you feel better about yourself as well. The question is, how do we become liked? And Jeff has some great ideas on how to do it. Let's jump in and see what he has to say. Tip number 1, talking about ourselves. Believe it or not, when you talk about yourself or when someone talks about themselves, they feel an activity that's associated in the brain with reward and satisfaction. It's almost like they got money or someone gave them food or even sometimes, believe it or not, sex. When people talk about themselves, they feel good about themselves for the most part. And the goal really is to get someone to talk about themselves. That's how you become more likable, because they feel better about themselves. We're going to talk about a couple questions, but the first thing we had to understand is what we need to do. And the key is make someone talk about his or herself. Tip number 2, and a perfect tip number 2, because it's the 2 follow-up question rule. What do we mean by that? Well, let's not ask when we meet someone a lame question like, what do you do? Because everyone asks that and they say, I'm X or whatever, and that's it. It's very quick. It's like saying, are you feeling okay? Yes, no. We don't want to ask a yes, no question. We want to start with a question that's going to get the person thinking, making them feel good. This author actually says something silly like, what's your favorite football team? Now, if someone doesn't like football, that's okay. We can go on to step 2 and ask a different question like, oh, you don't like football? Well, what do you do when everybody else is watching football? That's another thing as well. So find a question. It could be, what's your story? It could be, what book did you just read that inspires you? But something that's a little different that is going to let that person open up a bit. Try it. Our last tip, and this is a good one. After you ask that question and they told you, this is my favorite football team, or this is my favorite book, or this book inspired me, ask them how. Tell me more. Or what was it about them that did that? For example, if it was a favorite football team, maybe there's a memory that they had with a loved one or the parent or their first game. Or maybe for a book, it was something special that inspired them for that week. Whatever it is, ask them to tell a story. Let them convey more information about their feelings and their thoughts about what happened. Let them act nostalgic for that matter, and let them go on and on. And remember at the end, use the 3 magic words, tell me more. Because as they do that, they're going to open up more and you are going to appear interested as opposed to interesting. But in your mind, or in their mind I should say, you are the most interesting person out there because you're asking them all about their feelings, all about their emotions, and figuring out what it is that drives them to love something or like something or inspire them as well. And in doing so, you'll be perceived as someone who cares about them and, of course, in the end, become more likable. That's a wrap for this week's EQ video tip. It's a quick one on that 2-question rule, but make sure you use the right 2 questions, that you're asking questions that are open-ended about something people feel, and then using that to start that second question going forward. So it ultimately gives them the opportunity to expand upon their thoughts and their feelings. Hopefully this helps you become more likable. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.
Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.